The galaxy had known peace for 300 cycles. The Galactic Council maintained order across 12,000 star systems, with their massive defense fleets protecting trade routes and colonies from the occasional pirate raid or territorial dispute. Each member species contributed according to their strengths. The Zilani provided advanced technology, the Thorak offered their warrior traditions, and the Vexhai shared their diplomatic expertise. Commander Zephyra of the Zilani Defense Corps stood on the bridge of the flagship Celestial Guardian, watching the holographic display that showed patrol routes across the outer rim. Her crystalline skin reflected the blue light of the tactical screens as she reviewed routine reports. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. Just another peaceful day in civilized space. That peace shattered when Lieutenant Corvin burst through the bridge doors, his normally composed thorac features twisted with panic. "Commander, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the outer colonies." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Zephyra's elongated fingers moved across her control panel, bringing up the communication frequencies. What she heard made her blood run cold. "This is colony ship Harmony, under attack by unknown vessels. Weapons unlike anything we've seen. Mayday, Mayday, mining station Kepler 7. They're cutting through our shields like they're made of paper. Please, anyone who can hear this, they're coming from dark space. Hundreds of them." The transmissions dissolved into static, one by one, until only empty channels remained. Zephyra's mind raced as she processed what they'd just heard. The outer colonies were heavily defended. Mining stations had military-grade shields. Whatever force could overwhelm them this quickly was beyond anything in their recorded history. "How many colonies have gone silent?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear growing in her chest. Corvin's claws clicked against his tablet as he checked the readings. 17 so far, Commander. All in the same sector. The attack pattern suggests a coordinated assault by a massive fleet." Before Zephyra could respond, the ship's long-range sensors began screaming alerts. The main display shifted to show deep space scans, revealing something that defied belief. Emerging from the void between galaxies came a fleet unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. The vessels were enormous, each one easily twice the size of their largest dreadnought. Their hulls appeared to be made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange energy signatures pulsed along their surfaces like veins of liquid fire, and there were so many of them, hundreds, perhaps thousands, advancing in perfect formation toward the heart of Council space. "What are those things?" whispered Navigation Officer Yiltha, her 4 eyes wide with terror. "Unknown," Zephyra replied grimly. "Send an emergency transmission to Council headquarters. Code Black. Imminent galactic threat. All defense fleets to converge on our position." As the communication went out, the tactical officer's console erupted in warnings. "Commander, the lead vessels are accelerating. They'll reach the core systems in less than 6 hours at their current speed." 6 hours. Zephyra felt her heart sink. Even with emergency protocols, it would take at least 8 hours for the nearest defense fleets to reach them. The Council's most populated worlds, with billions of lives, would be defenseless. "Sir," Communications Officer Dalek called out, "we're receiving a response from High Command. They're ordering all available forces to establish a defensive line at the Meridian Gate. Admiral Thexani himself is leading the first battle group." The Meridian Gate, a massive space station that served as the primary checkpoint between the Outer Rim and the core worlds. It was heavily fortified with weapons platforms that could punch through a moon, but Zephyra doubted it would be enough. Not against whatever these invaders were bringing to bear. "Set course for the Meridian Gate maximum speed," she ordered, "and patch me through to Admiral Thexani." The main screen flickered, revealing the weathered face of the Thorak Admiral. His reputation for strategic brilliance was legendary throughout the galaxy, but even he looked shaken by what they faced. "Commander Zephyra," he growled, his voice carrying the weight of command. "I trust you've seen the sensor readings." "Yes, sir. What are your orders?" "We're assembling everything we have. 47 capital ships, 200 escort vessels, and the Gate's defensive platforms. It's the largest fleet the Council has ever fielded." He paused, his expression darkening. It may not be enough. Zephyra had served under Thexani for 15 years. She'd never heard him express doubt about any military situation. The fact that he was doing so now spoke volumes about the magnitude of the threat they faced. "Sir, what do we know about these attackers?" "Nothing. They're not in any of our databases. No recorded first contact, no diplomatic overtures, no demands. They simply appeared and began destroying everything in their path." His claws drummed against his command chair. "Whatever they are, they're not interested in communication. This is pure conquest." The Celestial Guardian shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace near the Meridian Gate. The sight that greeted them was both inspiring and terrifying. Dozens of Council warships hung in space around the massive station, their weapons powered and shields raised. But compared to what was coming for them, they looked like toys. "All ships report ready, Admiral," came a voice over the fleet channel. "Then we make our stand here," Thexani declared. "For the Council, for every life in the core worlds, we hold this line no matter the cost." As if summoned by his words, space itself seemed to tear open as the enemy fleet dropped out of hyperspace. They emerged in perfect formation, their dark hulls seeming to drink in the light of nearby stars. Energy weapons began charging along their surfaces, casting an ominous red glow across their formations. "All ships, battle stations," Admiral Thexani commanded. "Prepare to engage." The two fleets faced each other across the void, the Council's finest warriors against an unknown enemy from beyond the galaxy. In the distance, the Meridian Gate's massive weapons platforms swiveled to target the approaching threat. And in that moment of terrible anticipation, something unexpected happened. A new contact appeared on the sensors, not from the direction of the invaders, but from an entirely different vector. A small fleet, perhaps 20 vessels, approaching at incredible speed. "Unknown ships, identify yourselves," Zephyra transmitted on all frequencies. The response came in a language none of them had ever heard before, but the translation matrix quickly processed it. "This is Admiral Chen Wei of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress signal. We're here to help." Earth. The name meant nothing to anyone on the bridge, but as these new ships moved into formation alongside the Council fleet, their weapon signatures began lighting up the tactical displays. And what those displays showed made every officer stop and stare. These unknown vessels from this place called Earth were armed beyond anything in their experience. Their energy readings were off the charts, their shield generators putting out more power than most space stations, and their engines. Their engines were pushing them at speeds that should have been physically impossible. "Who are these humans?" Corvin whispered. Zephyra found herself smiling for the first time since the crisis began. Perhaps they had a chance after all. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the EDF Valkyrie, studying the tactical display with calm intensity. 20 years of commanding Earth's deep space fleets had prepared him for many scenarios, but responding to an alien distress call was a first. When the long-range listening posts had picked up the emergency transmissions, the decision to respond had been immediate and unanimous. "Sir," reported Captain Sarah Martinez, his tactical officer, "analysis of the enemy fleet is complete. We're looking at approximately 800 vessels, each averaging 3 kilometers in length. Energy signatures indicate some kind of dark matter weaponry we've never encountered before." Chen nodded grimly. The Earth fleet consisted of only 20 ships, but each one represented the pinnacle of human engineering. Decades of preparing for the worst had driven humanity to develop weapons and defenses that most species would consider impossible. "What about our new allies?" he asked. "The Galactic Council fleet has good tactics and discipline, but their technology is about 50 years behind ours. Their weapons might scratch the enemy's paint, but they won't do much more than that." Through the viewports, Chen could see the Council ships taking defensive positions around the massive space station. They moved with military precision, but their energy readings told the story. They were bringing chemical rockets to a nuclear fight. "Admiral Chen," came a transmission from the Council flagship. "This is Admiral Thexani. We're honored by your assistance, but I must warn you, these invaders have already destroyed 17 heavily defended colonies. Their technology appears far superior to anything we possess." Chen activated the communication link. "Admiral Thexani, I appreciate the warning, but humans have a saying. We didn't come this far just to come this far. My fleet is at your disposal." On the tactical display, the enemy formation began to spread out, their dark ships moving like predators circling wounded prey. Their weapons started charging, casting that ominous red glow across space. The Council ships responded by powering their own weapons, but the energy differential was obvious to anyone watching. "Sir," called out Navigation Officer Lieutenant James Park, "the enemy is launching something. Multiple contacts moving fast." The main screen zoomed in to show dozens of smaller craft launching from the dark ships. They moved with insect-like precision, swarming toward the Council fleet in attack formation. Each one was the size of a Council fighter, but their speed and maneuverability were unlike anything in the database. "Council fighters launching to intercept," reported Martinez. "But sir, their ships are too slow. They're going to get slaughtered." Chen watched as the two fighter formations closed with each other. The Council pilots were brave, but their ships were hopelessly outclassed. The enemy fighters moved like lightning, their weapons cutting through Council vessels with terrifying efficiency. "Launch Raptors," Chen ordered quietly. "Full tactical spread." From the bellies of the Earth ships, sleek fighters emerged like silver arrows. The F-95 Raptor was humanity's premier space superiority fighter, built with lessons learned from centuries of warfare. They accelerated toward the engagement at speeds that made both the Council and enemy pilots look like they were moving in slow motion. The first contact between human and enemy fighters lasted exactly 14 seconds. The Raptors cut through the enemy formation like a hot knife through butter, their plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes turning the dark fighters into expanding clouds of debris. "What just happened?" came Thexani's shocked voice over the comm. "Human fighters, Admiral," Chen replied calmly. "My pilots have been training for scenarios like this since they were old enough to walk." The enemy fleet seemed to pause, as if processing this unexpected development. Then the larger ships began moving forward, their main weapons charging to full power. Energy readings spiked across the tactical display as weapon systems that could crack planets prepared to fire. "Admiral!" Martinez called out urgently. "Multiple targeting locks from the enemy capital ships. They're preparing to engage both fleets simultaneously." Chen studied the formation for a moment, then smiled slightly. "Signal the fleet. Execute Protocol 7. Across the human formation, ships began to move with mechanical precision. What had appeared to be a standard defensive line suddenly transformed into something far more complex. The Earth vessels spread out in a three-dimensional web, each ship taking a position that maximized their combined firepower while minimizing their exposure to return fire. The Council officers watched in amazement as the human ships moved. It was like watching a dance performed by machines, every movement calculated and purposeful. Within minutes, the 20 Earth vessels had created a defensive formation that protected both themselves and the Council fleet behind them. "Beginning primary engagement," Chen announced to both fleets. "All Council ships, stay in formation and provide supporting fire when possible." The enemy opened fire first. their dark matter weapons lancing across space in beams of twisted energy. But the human ships were no longer where the targeting computers expected them to be. They moved like ghosts, sliding between the enemy shots with an ease that spoke of superior technology and training. Then the human ships returned fire, and the universe seemed to light up. Plasma cannons the size of city blocks sent coherent energy beams across space, each shot carrying enough power to level mountains. Quantum torpedo launchers fired spreads of missiles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them impossible to intercept. And from the larger vessels came the antimatter cannons, weapons that could punch through the core of a planet. The lead enemy ship, a massive vessel that had seemed invincible moments before, simply ceased to exist as 3 antimatter beams hit it simultaneously. The explosion was visible across half the star system, a brief new star that lit up the darkness of space. "Impossible!" breathed someone on the council channel. "How do they have such firepower?" Chen heard the comment but didn't respond. How could he explain humanity's history to beings who had known only peace? How could he describe a species that had fought 2 world wars, countless regional conflicts, and had spent decades preparing for threats that might never come? The human fleet continued its deadly dance, each ship moving in perfect coordination with the others. Enemy vessels that had seemed unstoppable moments before were being systematically destroyed, their dark hulls no match for weapons designed by a species that had never known true peace. "Sir," Martinez reported, "enemy fleet is attempting to withdraw. Looks like they're realizing they bit off more than they could chew." "Negative," Chen replied firmly. "They attacked helpless colonies. They threatened innocent lives. We don't let them retreat to try again somewhere else." The human ships accelerated, their engines pushing them at velocities that made the space around them shimmer. They moved to cut off the enemy's escape routes, herding the dark ships like wolves pursuing a flock of sheep. What followed was less a battle than a systematic dismantling of the enemy force. Human tactics, refined through generations of conflict, proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that had grown overconfident from easy victories. Ships that had seemed godlike in their power were reduced to scrap metal and expanding gas clouds. Commander Zephyra watched from her bridge in stunned silence as the humans methodically destroyed a fleet that would have conquered half the galaxy. Their movements were precise, their firepower overwhelming, and their tactical coordination beyond anything she had ever seen. "Admiral Thexani," Chen's voice came over the comm as the last enemy vessel was destroyed. "The immediate threat has been neutralized. But we need to talk. If there's one fleet like this out there, there might be others." On the main screen, the human admiral's face appeared for the first time. He was older than Zephyra had expected, with gray hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of years of command responsibility. But there was something else in his expression, a hardness that came from a species that had learned to fight for everything it had ever achieved. "We should probably discuss what happens next," Chen continued, "because if there are more of these invaders coming, the galaxy is going to need humanity's help." In the distance, the wreckage of 800 enemy ships drifted in space, testament to what happened when an aggressive species encountered humans for the first time. The Council had called for help, and Earth had answered. But as the immediate crisis passed, new questions arose about these powerful newcomers and what their presence would mean for the galaxy. Admiral Thexani stared at his tactical display, trying to process what he had just witnessed. In less than an hour, 20 human ships had accomplished what his entire fleet couldn't have managed with a year of preparation. The implications of that power, and what it meant for the future of galactic civilization, were only beginning to sink in. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on Xanthera Prime, 3 days after what historians would later call the Battle of Meridian Gate. Representatives from all member species gathered in the Great Chamber, their conversations buzzing with nervous energy about the humans who had appeared from nowhere to save them all. Admiral Chen Wei sat in the guest section, flanked by Earth's first diplomatic team to make contact with galactic civilization. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, adjusted her translation device as species after species filed into the chamber. Captain Marcus Thompson, Earth's military liaison, studied the various alien technologies with professional interest. Council Chairman Veltar, an ancient Vexhai whose species had helped found the galactic government, called for order with a resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the chamber itself. His elongated skull and wise eyes commanded immediate respect from all present. "Fellow beings," Veltar began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space, "we gather today to address unprecedented events. 3 days ago, our civilization faced annihilation from an unknown force. We were saved by the intervention of a species we had never encountered, humans from a world called Earth." Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. Commander Zeph Ara, now serving as the Zalani representative, found herself studying the human delegation with fascination. Their technology had proven superior to anything the Council possessed, yet they carried themselves with surprising humility. "Admiral Chen," Veltar continued, "your people responded to our distress call despite having no obligation to do so. We owe you a debt that cannot easily be repaid. But questions remain about your capabilities and intentions." Chen stood slowly, his dress uniform crisp and formal. "Chairman Veltar, honored representatives, I'll be direct since that seems to be appreciated here. Humanity received your emergency transmissions and responded because we believe in helping those who cannot help themselves. As for our capabilities, they exist because Earth has never known true peace." A Thorak representative, General Crixon, leaned forward in his seat. "Admiral, your weapons technology exceeds our understanding. Your fastest ships move at speeds we thought impossible. How did a single world develop such capabilities?" Dr. Vasquez activated her tablet and gestured to the chamber's main display. Images of Earth appeared, cities, oceans, continents, and finally, orbital defense platforms that dwarfed anything in Council space. "Our world has been engaged in warfare for most of recorded history," she explained matter-of-factly. "We've fought with sticks and stones, swords and arrows, gunpowder and nuclear weapons. Every generation has improved upon the last because survival demanded it." The images shifted to show human military history, ancient battles, medieval sieges, world wars, and finally the space conflicts that had driven humanity to develop their current technology level. "We've been preparing for threats from space for over 2 centuries, Chen added. "When we detected your galaxy's radio emissions 50 years ago, we began developing weapons and defenses capable of protecting Earth from any possible threat. We never expected to use them to help others, but we're glad we could." Council Representative Dalesh of the Yilnari species raised a concerned appendage. "Admiral, your military capabilities could easily conquer our entire galaxy. How do we know you won't become the next threat we face?" The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Chen exchanged glances with his team before responding, his voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "Representative Dalesh, humanity has a code that guides our actions. We fight to protect, not to conquer. We could have demanded tribute, territorial concessions, or submission from your worlds. Instead, we're offering our assistance freely because it's the right thing to do." Captain Thompson stood and activated his own display. "Every human military officer takes an oath to protect innocent life and defend those who cannot defend themselves. That oath doesn't have species restrictions." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. These humans, with their overwhelming military superiority, were offering protection rather than demanding submission. It was unprecedented in galactic history. Admiral Thexani, representing the Thorak Military Command, stood slowly. Admiral Chen, your fleet destroyed 800 enemy vessels in less than an hour. My analysts estimate it would have taken our combined fleets months to achieve the same result, assuming we could achieve it at all. What do you propose we do if more such threats appear? We establish a mutual defense treaty, Chen replied immediately. Earth provides military protection for Council worlds, and the Council shares scientific knowledge and cultural exchange. We learn from each other and build something stronger than either of us could achieve alone. But the power imbalance, protested Representative Kelvin of the Ashani Confederation. You could dictate terms to us. Why would you settle for partnership? Dr. Vasquez smiled slightly. Because isolation makes you weak. Humanity spent most of our history fighting each other because we didn't understand that diversity makes you stronger. You have scientific knowledge, philosophical perspectives, and technologies that complement our own. We need each other. Chairman Veltar studied the human delegation carefully. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he had never encountered a situation quite like this. A species with the power to dominate choosing instead to cooperate was almost beyond his experience. What specific arrangements do you propose? He asked. Chen activated his tablet, and detailed proposals appeared on the main display. Joint training programs for Council military forces, technology sharing agreements that benefit everyone, establishment of Earth fleet bases in strategic locations to provide rapid response to threats. And most importantly, inclusion of human representatives in Council decision-making. The debates that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives feared human dominance despite their peaceful overtures. Others worried about the cultural impact of integrating such a warlike species into their civilization. But underlying all their concerns was the stark reality. The galaxy needed protection that only humanity could provide. Commander Zephyra finally spoke for the first time during the session. I was there at Meridian Gate. I saw what would have happened to our worlds if the humans hadn't arrived. Whatever our concerns about their military power, they've already proven their intentions through actions, not words. Her statement seemed to shift the mood in the chamber. Representatives who had been expressing doubts began nodding in agreement. The evidence was undeniable. When given the opportunity to conquer, humanity had chosen to protect. The final vote was closer than expected, but ultimately decisive. The Galactic Council formally invited Earth to join as a member species, with special provisions for joint military operations and technology sharing. As the session ended, Chen found himself surrounded by representatives eager to learn more about human culture and capabilities, but his attention was focused on the long-range sensor reports coming in from Council monitoring stations. Dr. Vasquez, he said quietly, we're getting reports of more dark matter signatures at the galaxy's edge. It looks like that fleet we destroyed was just the first wave. Elena nodded grimly. Then we'd better get those joint training programs started quickly. The galaxy is going to need every advantage we can give them. 6 months later, the first joint Human Council fleet conducted exercises near the Outer Rim. Human officers worked alongside alien crews, sharing tactical knowledge and combat techniques. Council scientists studied human technology while human researchers explored alien innovations in physics and engineering. The galaxy had found its protectors, but more importantly, humanity had found its place among the stars. What had begun with a distress call had evolved into something neither species had expected, a true partnership based on mutual respect and shared values. When the next wave of dark ships arrived, they found not a collection of peaceful worlds defended by outdated technology, but a united galaxy backed by the full might of Earth's war machine. The invaders had awakened something they didn't understand, a species that had learned to turn the horrors of war into the tools of peace. The galaxy was no longer defenseless, and humanity was no longer alone. Together, they would face whatever threats emerged from the darkness between stars, standing united against any force that would threaten the innocent or destroy the peace they had all worked to build. Earth had answered the call, and in doing so, had found its destiny among the stars.